All right, everybody. Bruce Pearl put the Auburn world on notice after our last loss, said this is the biggest game of the year. He even called it a must win. Pretty rare for coaches to do that with 6 games left in the season. But man, the Auburn Tigers came through with a glorious, much needed, therapeutic victory over Missouri by 33 points, 89-56. The jungle was rocking. Maybe it wasn't a full sellout, but the crowd did pretty well. And Auburn started 19-2, just kind of blitzed them out of the gate. And it started with that patented Auburn half court defense that just made it tough on them. Ben Young is here for a victory podcast, and he is excited. Ben, what'd you see, man? This was so much fun to watch.
Man, I got to tell you, it wasn't just fun because we won and we won convincingly. This Auburn team, we have been watching and kind of waiting to see what's going to break them this season. And there was no better opportunity to break than after that Alabama game. We got so up for it. We played such fantastic basketball, and we just couldn't get off a season-defining win. And now you've got to come back. You're still at home. You're against a team that you're tied with for fourth in the SEC. It's a classic trap game, and we didn't just show up; we showed out. One of our best 3-point shooting performances of the year, but once again, defense led the way. This was an incredible defensive effort by this team.
I think we have to start with where exactly my head was where you're at. Says a lot about the program and the culture. This team's been putting their hearts out there every game. That we know this isn't the most talented team. We know they've had some rough breaks with a couple guys that they thought would be able to help us this year. They've been putting their guts on the line, and they keep losing close games. They've been battling. They've come back from deficits. They've had chances late to beat really good teams. You just never know. Don't take it for granted that a team comes out fighting like this. But I think, again, it's a Bruce Pearl. You just need to appreciate having a coach. He understood the moment. He was willing to go public with it. And he had been saying all the last couple of weeks, this team, we're not playing that bad. I'm not desperate. I think we're playing better, honestly, than we were a few weeks ago. And I think we've, as fans, been wrestling with that for stretches. It looks so good, but the results just haven't been there. And we kind of got our backs against the wall a little bit. We're showing up on bubble watch a little bit coming into this game, and it makes everybody nervous. Huge win. So much to get into. Let's start with our MVP. Kind of an interesting game where everybody contributed. I think there's some sneaky candidates that, if you watch the game, you might not have thought. But I mean, what are your thoughts for MVP watching this game?
So you heard the announcers probably talk about this a lot if you watched the game. And if you didn't get a chance to watch the game, we're going to tell you the number one thing the TV announcers couldn't stop talking about is our size inside. That was a huge factor in this game. We saw one of the best performances of the year from our backup center, Dylan Cardwell. And we had to play a more aggressive defensive style that left guys in a lot of one-on-ones. And I think Missouri pressed for probably about 75% of this game on their defensive end. And our bigs were crucial in being able to break that. Not just Jalen Williams, who we're used to being kind of an impressive ball handler for a guy that's 6'8", 230 or 240, whatever he's at. But Janai Broome coming up and getting the ball in half court, not being afraid to drive from nearly the 3-point line when he's got one-on-ones at the far end of the court after we've broken that press. Janai put up a masterful stat line tonight, 20 points, 10 rebounds, but his 2 assists were some of the biggest because it was part of that sort of transition offense where we went boom, boom and got an easy basket once we were able to break the press. That's something that we haven't seen from this Auburn team a lot this year. So it was huge.
The ball movement was great. We really moved the ball well. I think you're onto something there. Missouri likes to press off a make, and they have some length. They may not have been as big inside as we were, or they didn't play as big at least. But their wings and their guards are bigger. So they kind of tried to use that, and we really did a good job against the press. You were pointing that out in our group text. So Broome was great.
Yeah, particularly Wendell Green. Wendell Green didn't have a massive stat line tonight. It was a good stat line. He stuffed the sheet. I don't know if you could consider this an MVP game for him, but I don't want his performance to get lost in the shuffle. He was key in so many of those big moments. And again, we saw when he came off the floor, we were missing that straw a little bit.
9 assists, 0 turnovers. And the most impressive thing, if you've watched Wendell Green the last 2 years, didn't make a shot, only took 4, didn't really seem phased at all. Like he didn't force anything. He didn't sulk. He played great defense. I was going to mention it. Obviously, he's probably not the MVP, but he handled the pressure. We got a great night where we were able to give him and our starters like a lesser workload because of the gap we built. And 9 assists, 0 turnovers is nothing to sneeze at. Like that's in 24 minutes. That's pretty good work.
No, and it's hard to say that we won the game because of Wendell's performance, but we won the game by 30 plus points because of Wendell Green's performance. So I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. But ladies and gentlemen of the Auburn Jungle podcast, I got to eat some crow here because tonight we saw a masterful performance from the man who I have been calling to be benched for, I believe, the last 5 weeks. And he didn't just have his psycho KD moments. This was a basketball player that was filling into his role, finding his spots on the floor, and just executing the game plan perfectly. KD Johnson finished with, where's he at on our stat sheet here?
15-4.
Yeah, 15 points, 4 rebounds.
In 20 minutes.
He had 2 turnovers. Yeah, he had 2 turnovers, but even those were not our typical bad KD turnovers. There was one that I believe was a drive to the basket that should have been a foul call. The refs were a little quiet tonight, which we won't complain about too much after the last few weeks. And he had a beautiful vision pass to Wendell Green, sliding in from the wing in the open court. It would have been a masterful assist layup. Wendell just lost the handle just a little bit. Been a game of inches for us all year. But that's a turnover that I don't mind because it was the right pass.
Right. He exemplifies. I think he's a microcosm of this team. And today, even during this game, you felt the tension of like this when we get out and move and run and play aggressively and take bad shots and like you start to lull yourself like, oh yeah, this is a Bruce Pearl like Auburn team, but we know deep down that we don't quite have that consistently. But it was nice to see, and I think KD just continues. I think this is 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7 games in double figures. We talk KD to death. We know his weaknesses. He's gonna have a couple bad moments every game. We just know it. But again, another night where people are gonna focus on the 4 threes. We know that's not sustainable. What was sustainable, he continues to move the ball well. He continues to look more confident, and he even had a couple hamburglar moments, which we need the KD. And that was my argument for keeping him on the floor. Was he brings some things that nobody else on this roster can bring. But as you've pointed out, we need to have the positive end of that show up more than the negative. And last few games, he's been doing that.
And more importantly, it just seems like that he has been key in a lot of instances in getting us off schedule. Tonight, his looks were, for the most part, pretty good. They were in rhythm. It wasn't KD doing his signature, I'm going to dribble between my legs 5 or 6 times and pull up and try to shoot over you, that Jackson hates. Shout out Jackson.
Especially early, right? The first couple were great looks. And then he took a couple contested ones and made them. But the ones he got early and then get into the basket, like you're right. It was in rhythm. It was open. And he just needs to hit some of those.
But even those 2 contested shots when he started 4 for 4, those were those moments late in the shot clock where it was clear we were not going to be able to get the look we wanted inside. And so what does a Bruce Pearl offense do? That's when you kick to your guards and say, the shot clock, we're getting late in the shot clock. Just shoot it. Just shoot it. Just shoot it. And part of that anticipation is getting to your spot and being ready for it. We saw that from KD tonight perfectly. We also saw it from my boy and my personal vote for MVP, Lior Berman.
Well, Lior was great.
No. Lior hit his spot. He had a couple of big threes tonight. And that was, again, just part of that same sense that we had across the floor of guys finding the spot that they needed to be at when they needed to be there. Mm-hmm. And the only time things went wrong tonight were if we had some errant passes or some guys that were one step ahead of where everyone else was.
Yeah.
For the most part, you saw guys get into position, be where they needed to be, and hit their assignments. But we had some amazing minutes from our backup tonight. We saw some good quality Trey Donaldson minutes, which we really need. We got some great minutes out of Dylan Cardwell that we don't usually see. But I think for me, the MVP discussion really comes down to KD and Janai.
It does.
I'm inclined.
But just look, in the game, I think KD's the clear first half MVP, and Janai kind of snuck around a little bit. Like I joked, he had 11 and 8 at halftime. I was like, what? Like he did? Like I didn't remember that. But look at Flanagan. Now, when you go back and think about it, he made all of his 2-point shots. He was 1 for 2 from 3, made his free throws. He had 16 on 7 shots in 25 minutes, 3 rebounds. I thought he defended. We'll get to our defense. So I would throw Flanagan in,
Okay.
Look,
I respect that.
I just think for this team, right? Like what allowed us to win this all important game when KD and Flanagan, those two guys we've been so hard on because we know their potential. And when Flanagan started elevating his offense, we were like, okay, like that's really helpful. If KD can do anything 50% of this, that's another step for this team as we try to get something going down the stretch. So I think it's those 3 guys. My gut wants to give it to KD because I think let's talk about the bench, right? Auburn went on like a 12-0 run with the bench in the first half that really stretched out those leads. If you've been watching the last few games, Auburn has played really well in stretches, but they haven't been able to extend the lead to really build a lead. Well, our bench responded. I think Bruce challenged them. We're supposed to be 10 deep. We need guys to contribute. We're not good enough for the bench not to. And and KD was a huge part of that in the first half. If you're looking at why the game played out the way it did, Broom's dominance inside, I'm not going to argue with it. Maybe this is just a homer thing. Maybe it's like a support a guy that like we just need something from him, but I don't know. I think I would lean KD a little bit the way this game played out.
Well, and I'm going to lean that way too, and let me tell you why. People don't come to this podcast so that we can read them the box score and pick the one with the best numbers, right? And we know from watching the early part of this game, Janai was quiet. Janai missed some close looks, as he's been known to do. We saw some amazing moves that it seems like only he can do as a center for Auburn. We've never seen a guy with that quick turnaround drive to the basket. But his short game was not there early. What was there early was our outside shooting game. And we kind of changed up our rotation a little bit. Ordinarily, Janai stays out there a little bit longer after most of the starters come off the floor. It's either him or Jalen, and we rotate everyone else in. This time, we kept Wendell Green out there on the floor with the backups, and that was when we went on, I believe it was a 16-2 run.
And then Trey was part of that too. They kept winning on the floor. And then first time all year that I can remember outside of maybe garbage time, that it was all bench guys and they responded. I mean, they were flying on defense and Trey came in and kind of joined the other 4. So you're right. That's how they played it.
And a big part of what stretched that lead from 12 to 20 was KD's offensive effort. And then from there, we got to do this Auburn team's favorite thing, which is just play around with the lead. Yeah. It's been so critical for us to be ahead because our style of basketball, it's very difficult for us to come back from those double-digit deficits. And it's even harder for us, as we've seen all year, to win these close games. But what we can do really, really well is defend a lead, particularly our bench guys. It seems like they can really keep whatever the momentum of the game is going. But if you put them out there with a close game, everybody just plays a little bit tighter. And tonight they were so loose in part because of the ability of KD to shoot the basket from the outside.
It's amazing. Every basketball game is so different. I think sometimes we get locked in with our own biases and narratives, and we assume things like, I hate when even Jimmy Dykes, I understand what people mean, but I don't like when people are like, well, is this a second round team or a Sweet 16? Like, we've watched the tournament. Like, nobody knows who those teams are. And
St. Peter's is a Sweet 16 team in the right year.
Right. And if you watch Missouri go into Knoxville and put up 86 and win at the buzzer, of course, we had a chance to beat Tennessee and Knoxville too, but you see that team and all Auburn, I think Auburn fans were nervous. I was really nervous about this game. A lot of pressure on it. And for us to just go out, not just hit shots. We know if we hit shots, we're going to be tough. Like it just hasn't happened regularly, but the defense was just so good. I want to really dig into that. Anyway.
Before we do that, I think we should go ahead and do it because we're going to see some more good games from Janai down the stretch. We may never see a performance this good from KD Johnson again across the board. Just efficient, deadly, and in all the right times and in all the right places that we've been begging to have a guard perform all year. We got it tonight.
In typical KD fashion, not only does he win I believe, probably his first MVP of the year, it's basically in one half. and like
Yeah.
13 minutes of play. If you want one more cherry on top, he was plus 26 in his 13 first half minutes. So he was, and we had a 27-point lead. So when KD was on the floor was when most of the lead was stretching. That's not all him, obviously, but kudos to KD, man. Like, I look forward to the graphic MVP. Let's go.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get some great moments from KD, I'm sure, for that. But yeah, let's get into our defensive effort because man,
Yes.
you want to talk about tenacity. There were some times where I wish we could have settled a little bit more as a defense. Tonight, we had some incredibly active hands. You heard this from Bruce in the pregame, and the announcers kept going back to it. He said, we have to defend Missouri like they're all guards. And truth be told, Missouri essentially started 5 guards. They have a guy that they have listed in their starters as a forward. He's only 6'6". So we had a lot of not super tall for basketball players, but they were tall guys. They were all quick. They could all shoot. And we had to essentially follow the same playbook that we did against Alabama. And there may be some sense there of you have guys wanting to play hero ball on defense or guys not trusting the scout or the assignments. But tonight was a total team effort in terms of the way these guys defended.
It really was great. I mean, I've been bragging on this half court defense. I think when we don't hurt ourselves and when we make teams shoot over us and defend like we're capable of defending, I think teams struggle. And, I think we were 4th in the country in 3-point defense coming into this game, or at least against Alabama, we were. They were talking about that nationally. Missouri hit 9 threes a game. They hit 5 today. They shot 23% from 3. Again, you can call it a luck or trend. It's been all year pretty much. Except for Stevenson, who I still hate, from West Virginia. But our half court was so good. We finished possessions with rebounds. I think one of the big keys was we turned Missouri over a lot. Sometimes we're a really solid half court defense, but we don't get those live ball active hands. Turnovers, I've really noticed the last couple of weeks. The hands, the help defense is better. You're right. Bruce Pearl's teams always are on this line of like really aggressive defense, ball pressure, but don't foul. And it's hard to live in that space depending on how the officials are calling it on a given night. Overall, though, when the game was, that first half defense, we held them to 18 points, by far their lowest of the season. This is the number 4 nationally ranked offense in KenPom analytics. Okay. I don't know.
For the SEC, they're leading the SEC in field goal percentage.
Yeah.
Just overall, they averaged 48% from the floor. They hit nearly half of their shots. They were averaging 82 points a game, which is second in the SEC behind the worst possible team that could be leading the SEC in that category. And in their 3-point percentage, they are also first. Well, they're tied for first overall with Kentucky at 36.6. So more than 1 out of 3 of their 3-pointers goes in, and about half of their 2-point shots are going in. It's incredible to have held this team to this shooting percentage and this score.
And I just don't know if Auburn fan, like, I get it. Missouri's like a weird SEC team, and maybe you haven't watched a lot of Missouri. I haven't watched a lot of Missouri, but if you go look up what they've done, we came into this game as one of the top 10 seeds for Joe Lunardi. This Missouri team was projected as a 7. Now, they beat Tennessee. They got a big bump from that, but like, this is a good win. I mean, you talked before we came on, like, this is probably our best resume win of the year. It's not a quad 1, unfortunately, unless Missouri makes a big run and gets up to top 30. They're, I believe they're 40.
I think I saw 46.
44, right ahead of
44.
Kentucky.
Okay, no, Kentucky. Okay.
But it's a good win. It's a good win. Yeah. And don't, like, what we did to them defensively. Again, that Tennessee team that we gushed about their defense, they put up 80 something. And look, Missouri missed shots. They didn't play they missed some opportunities, but our defense continues to show how capable it really is. And it really has to be the thing that carries us. And the beautiful part that you pointed out is you can hang your hat on defense all you want. And defense has kept us in every single game this year. I've said it all year. But how do you win those games? You got to make some shots. And when Auburn hit some shots today, you see what happens.
And the main difference early on was, again, this was a game that a lot of people in the announcers, and I'm sure a lot of people online, really felt it was over by halftime, because you have to screw up in a massive way to lose a 30-point lead.
I was still nervous, Ben. With this team, I was still nervous.
Listen, I'm right there with you, because all it takes is us to decide we're just going to jack up a bunch of threes. Yeah. And Missouri, we held them without a 3-pointer for the entire first half. You knew that wasn't going to hold for the rest of the game. No. They started to hit some shots late. They had the potential to mount an insane comeback. It's not out of the realm of possibility. But we stuck with what was working early, which is that we just played disciplined defense. We rebounded exceptionally well.
Yeah.
We did not give them many second chance opportunities. And we just went and scored with our offense on the other end. We got a little three happy towards the end of the first half, but in our defense, we were hitting it. So at that point, yeah, why not? Rack it
Yeah.
up.
If I know one thing about a Bruce Pearl offense, it's that anyone who hits 2 or 3 outside shots is gonna take a heat check. Like it's always been that way. It's
You have
always
a
been.
license to kill.
People wanted to get on KD for that one. I'm like, dude, you haven't been watching Auburn basketball. That everybody takes that shot when you've hit a few. Um, what about our job on Kobe Brown? You mentioned we had a real concern for a little bit that some of the top players were torching us a little bit. Jackson was having massive panic attacks about our small guards defensively and how we were doing against those guys. Now, I will say this. Kobe Brown's a great player, and I've watched some of his games, and he's very odd to me how deferential he was in this game. Like, he really did not assert himself at all. He had a few possessions where he had Wendell on him and he just kind of passed it. He only shot 7 times. Some of that was our defense.
He had a couple of moments in the second half that were just head scratching for me. Like, if I'm a Missouri fan, I got a little bit mad about him.
Yeah.
They switched him onto Lior Berman. He drove him down into the lane, passed to the open guy for the 3-pointer. All right, you need the points. You're down pretty far. I can understand that. But then Lior boxed him out and allowed us to get the rebound off of that missed 3. And that, to me, is what a defeated basketball player looks like.
Yeah.
Kobe Brown is an incredibly talented guy, but he did not get his way early. And once the game got out of hand, he had no interest in being the guy to help them back.
And you credit Jalen Williams for that. He was on him most of the first half when it was close. Thought we had a great plan. And Jimmy Dykes is terrific. People have different opinions on announcing. I think Jimmy Dykes brings stuff to the telecast that's great. And he knows Bruce really well. And they're talking about, like you said, such a good teaching point if you're just watching these games. Like, we defended everybody at the 3-point line like they were guards and chased them off and took some of that Bama game plan, and it really did work. So our scouts, man, I just
hats off.
Maybe I'm noticing it more. Maybe it's because we've talked to some of these assistant coaches on the podcast, but like, our team, for all of our warts this year and the close losses and stuff, I have not gone into a game and watched the game and felt like we were not prepared to give our best effort, especially on the defensive end. And that's a credit to all those assistant coaches on those 3 different scout teams who are doing just a phenomenal job. It seems like almost every game we do have a good start to the game. So it's really impressive.
Particularly since the calendar turned. I mean, you can argue a little bit the West Virginia game was a rough start, but also Henderson, I think, was like 7 for 7 in that first half. I mean, just an unimaginable performance from 3. That's what it took to sort of break our scout down. Because again, if you look, no matter who you're playing against, you want him to shoot 7 3-pointers, great, go for it. There's no way he makes all 7 of them. But go back to the game against Alabama. Brandon Miller absolutely shut down until the very end of that game. Our revenge games against Georgia and A&M, we were able to get it against Georgia. We were not against A&M, but the guys that burned us, Terry Roberts and Tyrese Radford, we held pretty well in check,
right,
which means we were able to adjust our game plan and not get burned in the same way. Yes. So it's a funny thing to say that last year's team was always finding new ways to win games at the last possible second. And this team, it seemed like for a while, there was finding all sorts of new ways to lose games.
Yeah. We really haven't won a close game. I was thinking about that. St. Louis was close and KD made a couple plays and we pulled that one out. Florida was close, came down to the last possession. But other than that, we haven't won a game that was like in that last minute undecided. I think if you're looking at a weakness for this team, it's not that they can't do it. We've not had some great closing minutes. We've seen that. I think that's a legitimate concern. But again, I think all you can do from a coaching perspective and from the player, you just got to keep putting yourself in that position, right? Like if you can.
And again, the St. Louis game and the Florida game, both, it came down to defense.
Yep.
We had a chance.
And we were ahead, right?
Yeah, we were ahead. We were ahead in both of those games. We needed to throttle St. Louis at the end and trade some baskets and hit free throws. Which
we were down to St. Louis. I remember like 4 or 6 or 3, like with 3 minutes left.
But I want to say we went up at that last.
We got up in the last minute. Exactly.
And then same thing against Florida. We kind of traded baskets back and forth. But we got to where we were up. We could have put it away, but we didn't get the shot that we wanted. I believe we might have turned the ball over.
Yeah.
So we were down 2, and a stop wins you the game, and
Yeah.
we got it. So that seems to be the recipe for this team. This was the recipe against Arkansas. This was the recipe in our revenge game against Georgia. Against some of the lesser teams, LSU and Ole Miss, it didn't seem to matter as much. We sort of stretched those games away a little bit more towards the end once we saw what their alignments were, what kind of sets they were trying to go to. But being up is big. Being up is big for this team.
Yeah. Yeah. So kudos to the team, man. I'm glad we focused on the defense. The offense, I think the biggest key was just that we shared the ball well and we broke their pressure well, which you touched on. And then it's the depth of the contributions. We know we're offensively challenged. The thing I keep pointing out is I'm noticing when we have some success, it's 4, 5, 6 guys hitting threes because we don't hit many threes. But if we can get more than Katie hit 4, that's great. But
Zep we got 2 out of Zep Jasper. We got 2 out of Leor Berman.
Yeah, and then Flan hit 1 out of 2. So really, and again, encouraging.
We also got 9 points out of Dylan Cardwell.
Oh yeah, well, and we need to mention that because Janai Broom 20 and 10 in 21 minutes, half the game is impressive. That's a 40 and 20 pace there. But Cardwell was right there. He played 16. He had 8 points and 10 rebounds. If he had a tip there at the end of the game. He was in with the backups, kind of playing center, and that would have given him a double-double as a backup coming off the bench.
Unbelievable effort from him. And then, let's talk about overall 21 assists to 10 assists. We won that category. That is a beautiful
assist on 32 makes. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is a Matt Donaldson basketball game right there.
Look, Missouri makes that easy. Again, Jimmy Dykes, shout out. He said early before the game started, I think, if Missouri doesn't turn you over, they play kind of an interesting style. But you're going to get good looks if you move the ball. And we got great looks and we hit some. And I thought other than a stretch, you're right, we got a little loose in the second half and we got a little 3-happy in the first half. But overall, we were just dicing them up with great passes. And that was really good to see because we've looked so stagnant at times.
And then again, where we saw Janai and Dylan both do so much of their damage was on that offensive glass, which was a major weak point against Alabama. It was a major weak point against Texas A&M, especially late. We out-rebounded them tonight, 48-26. Another huge differential, 20-plus differential on the glass. But we doubled them up in offensive rebounds, 16-7. That is just critical for a team when you've got that size advantage. We've talked all year about trying to find an identity. I don't know if this team's going to find one, which I'm kind of okay with. I like us having different ways that we can win games when we do the little things well, like offensive rebounds, like hitting our open looks and like just playing that tenacious extended defense. I'm fine with that. We don't need a Kobe Brown that is, flirting with SEC Player of the Year. We need 5 guys on the floor at any given time that know where they need to be and can just do their job.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I just think it's crazy. Biggest lead was 39. We really torched this team. This is a tournament team in Missouri unless they fall apart down the stretch. Biggest margin of victory in an SEC game in 4 years.
Wow.
So we were all desperate for a win. I just think the fans need to really soak this one in because we've been through a rough few weeks. This was it was just such a needed therapeutics, the word I'm just going to, you hope it's going to lead to some good vibes because in the same way that all of a sudden you look up in Missouri was a game behind us in the SEC and they just went to Knoxville and won. Vanderbilt is over 500 in the SEC and we've got to come to Nashville this Saturday. Come hang out with me and all the Greater Nashville Auburn Club. Wear orange, by the way, if you're coming to the game. That's what the club wants.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to alarm you, but if Vanderbilt beats us on Saturday, we're going to swap places for that number 4 overall seed.
They would tie us.
We would fall to 8-6 and they would rise to 8-6. And then it's just a log jam of desperation for that 2-round bye in the SEC tournament.
Yeah. So again, that's another big piece of this. We held our tie for 4th. We want to do that just if we can give ourselves a chance that last week to try to get the double bye, that would be awesome. But we've talked about it on the pod. I think we need 3 wins. It's my opinion. I don't care where the 3 come. And this is a huge one. Vandy's a huge one. and then it's Ole Miss at home after that, which Ole Miss has really fallen off a cliff. So this Vandy game now is a bit. I mean, it's another one that is very winnable. It's a quad 2 game, but they're playing better than you think. They beat Tennessee at home last week, and they're 7-6 in the league. I mean, they had a bad.
And again, let's talk about a little bit why everyone hit the panic button when we kind of finished this 3-game stretch of important games, but not must-win games without picking one up. And that's because we need 20 wins to go dancing. 20 wins, maybe +1 in the SEC tournament. And I think we're pretty safe at around a 10 seed, and we're going to get to the NCAA tournament. That's huge for the brand, huge for the program to continue this streak of being in the NCAA tournament. And that was in real jeopardy because this is a good Missouri team that was coming in here. We're going to go on the road, which is always tough, and play a heating up Vanderbilt team. And against Ole Miss, those 3 games became must win for us to dance.
Well, unless we can pull a big one, and we just
right.
I think from what we've seen with this team, again, a great example tonight. I don't like when people assume we're going to beat teams. I don't like when people assume we're going to lose because we had Alabama on the ropes, we had Tennessee on the ropes, we had A&M on the ropes, and we've shown we can play with good teams. But you just don't want to lose to Vanderbilt now. You're right on 20 wins. I think the bigger picture for me is 10-8 in the league. 10-8 in the league with our metrics. Our metrics are still really good. We're top 25, top 35. Like, we're okay, but you don't want to give the committee a chance to say, well, they're 9-9 in the SEC. The SEC wasn't even that good this year. They don't have any good wins. So I think if we're 10-8, I just feel like we're going to be in. Now, I'm still going to be sweating it if we were to beat Vanderbilt barely, beat Ole Miss, lose the last 3, and lose our first SEC tournament game. That won't be comfortable, but I think we'll be okay. So this was a huge one. Saturday's bigger now. Saturday's a really big opportunity. So I'm glad we got this one.
Yeah, and it's important because, again, at this point, we're a little too far back. Alabama, I think, has to lose every other game for us to hang a regular season banner. I think we can safely say we're out. But we said that kind of coming into this season. This didn't feel like a banner team, particularly in the regular season. They can get hot here at the end.
You never know.
Yeah, we could win the SEC tournament if things kind of break our way, and we can get over our Buzz Williams hump. I think that's going to be a big part of it.
I'm glad you mentioned Buzz Williams because if you're like me and you just want to set things on fire that when Alabama's good, A&M's the team you got to watch for. I love that Tennessee's blown games and is losing. It's great. We're going to probably finish the year still with the most wins over the last 5 or 6 years or whatever because they are only 1 game ahead of us right now in league play, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. But A&M just hanging around with 2 losses. Alabama goes to Tennessee tomorrow. That's going to be a desperate Tennessee team that's on a bit of a – if Alabama were to lose in Knoxville, they still have to play A&M. So A&M.
So let's imagine a world too. Let's imagine a world where A&M holds on, they continue winning. Alabama loses to Tennessee. If we go into Tuscaloosa and catch Alabama napping, catch a tight Alabama team and beat them, their last game against A&M now becomes the game for the league championship for the regular season.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine this Alabama team then having to go into the SEC tournament and into the NCAA tournament, knowing they had a fantastic year and choked it away at the end?
We can dream.
Yeah, we can dream, boys and girls.
It's not looking good, although I am encouraged that we played with them and with our little team. Anyway, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We dominated in the paint. That's great to see. You know, we kind of had a weird game plan for Alabama that we got intentionally torched in the paint.
But let's not take away from the fact that Janai was not great in that game.
Yeah.
Janai was so much better on the offensive glass. Dylan Cardwell was also great on the offensive glass. We didn't have the size advantage against Alabama that we did against Missouri, but it's clear that this team relies on those guys inside to do so much of our rebounding on those long missed shot opportunities. And so as much as we know that this team kind of lives and dies by Wendell Green Jr., in a lot of ways, we're seeing it live and die by Janai Broom's effort on the glass.
Let's the only thing you're right. And Janai, I think you and I agree with this because we've talked about it. If we had to, I think our 2 identity points at this point, as much as this team's going to have one, is half-court defense. And 3-point defense is part of that, but half-court defense and Janai Broom and sometimes Jalen Williams inside, going for 2s. I think that's the closest thing we have to an identity, honestly.
especially offensively.
When
But
we're good.
we're going into a tough matchup against Vanderbilt, who's led in scoring by their 7-footer
I was going to say,
on
tough
the
matchup for
inside.
Janai
Yeah,
Saturday.
Liam Robbins from Davenport, Iowa. He must be a transfer or
I
something.
think he went to Minnesota, somewhere in the Big Ten, and transferred to Vandy.
Yeah, and so we're gonna see Janai have to go inside up against somebody where he doesn't have a clear size advantage, and with somebody who's a pretty good scorer, pretty good shot blocker, averaging 3 blocks a game, 6 rebounds, nearly 7. It's going to be a tough matchup, and this was a turning point in the season. I think this was a must-win game, and we didn't just win it; we won it going away. So the hope is this team can take some of that confidence that they said they had after the Alabama game. They all said, this is not a down locker room. This is not a team that's panicking. We believe in who we are and what we do. We just need to go out there and do it. Well, tonight they went out there and did it in a big way.
Two notes on that. If you're looking for a concern out of this game, Broom injured himself twice on dunks. One time he got fouled and they didn't call it. But I think it's still that left toe. I think you were on it from the beginning. It seems like, and the first one he came back in and looked a little ginger, but it's like, okay, I think he's good. Then it happened again. He barely got a dunk off. And that one worries me. I know we have an extra day to get ready for Saturday. He's played through a lot, but you're right. That's going to be a huge matchup. If you talk to any Vanderbilt fan, I have a few. I know there's not many Vanderbilt fans. I know a few people up here, and they will tell you when Vanderbilt plays well, it usually runs through Robbins inside. And that's a question mark. I don't know. Am I overreacting to what I saw from him?
No, I don't think so. But also, you got to remember that we missed Dylan Cardwell against Tennessee.
True.
When Janai had to go off the floor, not having that big body presence inside that can grab those rebounds. Dylan was masterful in the rebound game tonight, particularly on the offensive end.
Oh, he really has been. The last few games, he's been terrific.
Yeah. And so I think having him for Vanderbilt, especially if Janai is not 100%, is huge. And then we're going to have to see what we saw tonight, which is Jalen Williams also assert himself in that rebounded game. Jalen had a pretty quiet night offensively, but we didn't need a big offensive night from him.
Classic Jalen game, just sneaking around almost double-digit points, hits his free throws, 7 rebounds, only had to play 25. I love it.
Yeah.
Just kind of 3 assists, just kind of doing a little bit of everything, finished an and one. It's nice. Jackson gets on him sometimes because he doesn't want him to be a 3 shooter. I love that that's part of his game, but he put together a really nice game. If he hits one of those 2 really good looks from 3, 12 and 7, that's a classic Jalen line. So,
oh yeah,
I'm happy with him.
Yeah, it was a night where we didn't need him to assert himself, and so he did what he does best, which is he facilitated the game for the team. And having that at 6'8" and 240 pounds is just it's a luxury. It's why Bruce said he could build this team around him.
Huge part of breaking the press. You were right on that. And the hard part for this team, though, on a night like tonight, Jalen can be invisible Jalen. It doesn't matter. But then we get in these crunch games that are just like so stressful and we need buckets and they're so hard to get. And I think the challenge with this team, for me personally, I think Jalen's like option number 2 or 3 on this team offensively. And it's like the coaches have to force feed him with their play calls. And you see a night like tonight, like Bruce doesn't want to force feed stuff tonight. He wants them to play together and move the ball. But it just hasn't been there consistently this year. I think that's where Bruce, especially as a play caller, is kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah, but I think tonight was another one of those amazing nights where the guys that were our most quiet, Wendell, Jalen, and Janai. Again, hard to say that Janai had a quiet game, but when you look at how much he played,
yeah,
and where he did most of his damage on second chance points, the free throw shooting was immaculate tonight. KD Johnson, for all of his amazing moments tonight, that was his only bad spot. Was he hit his last free throw, his first 3 he missed. But you know what? I'll allow it.
On the night classic KD, classic KD. He gets a Hamburglar moment on an inbounds pass after we made a shot, gets fouled. It's like, yes, this is what we want from KD. I sent out a message. I was like, yeah. And then he promptly misses the 2 free throws. And again, Jimmy Dykes, shout out, must be listening to the Jungle podcast. He talked about 70 points being a key for this team, which Jackson and a lot of us have been on all year. And he also talked about the KD giveth and taketh. I know Bruce has said that, but hey, we're going to say that he listens to the Jungle.
As well, all of you should. And if you're not following us on our socials, on Instagram and Twitter. You can find all of us on Instagram. You can find all of us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. Check us out at all of our socials. I'm going to pull up our handles here. Our Twitter account I know is at Auburn Jungle. How Jackson got that one, I still don't know. It's great branding on his part.
I love when Andy Burcham tags us and stuff.
It might be on accident, but you know what? We're going to take it anyway.
Definitely.
And then if you want to find us on Instagram, we are at the Jungle Auburn Podcast.
And Jackson wanted us to make a pension. We don't do, y'all know this if you listen to this show. Like, we don't ask for any, we don't really care. This is just fun. We get to do some fun interviews. We get to talk Auburn basketball. That's what we're here for. We're only going to focus on Auburn basketball. If you could rate and review stuff, that's always really helpful. Kind of gets other people to see us in the ring. Y'all know how this works. It's 2023. So if you haven't done that, that would be great. If you've stuck with us through this losing stretch, if you're still listening, we still have hundreds of people listening. Kudos to y'all for sticking in it, riding with us. Rate and review would be great if you could do that. If you're coming to Nashville, I just want to say real quick, if you're coming to Nashville, I'm going to be there with a couple friends. So, if you want to hang out at halftime or say hi or something, hit us up on one of our socials and be glad to say hi and talk ball with you for a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be another hugely important game for us. We need everybody to be there, and we need everybody to be loud, and we need everybody to be part of this community. We love talking Auburn basketball, and we want to talk Auburn basketball with you.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're listening to this podcast.
Let's just take a quick, I think we've touched on most things, but we'll do a quick cursory look at the standings and what's happened tonight other than our game and kind of look ahead.
Right now we are in sole possession of fourth place at 8-5. We're half a game behind Tennessee, who's 8-4 in the league.
So they could lose tomorrow to Alabama, and we could be tied for third tomorrow.
They could indeed lose to Alabama tomorrow. Let's take a look at what some of the rest of the games this week are going to look like. We're going to look at Wednesday night's slate here while Matt is pulling some other stuff up. The Wednesday night slate is Florida hosts Ole Miss. Alabama travels to Knoxville to play Tennessee. Kentucky and Mississippi State play. That's an interesting matchup because that's two bubble teams right there. You got Kentucky that is currently last four out, and I believe Mississippi State is considered next four out.
Are they really?
Or they might have been last four in as of tonight. They've got a better record.
I didn't think they were that close.
Kentucky's 16-9. I think again they're held up by their metrics. Mississippi State's defensive metrics continue to be
great.
Top drawer.
Yep.
And then we have Arkansas traveling to Texas A&M.
Big game.
Arkansas has been up and down all year, for sure. They're not favored in this. A&M's got about a 60% chance to win, according to ESPN. The point spread right now is 3, so they're listing it as a one possession game. But if Texas A&M drops this one, the regular season conference title is going to be just about locked up by the team up the road, which will be a real shame.
If you're cheering for, ultra chaos as an Auburn fan, you probably want Tennessee to win, and you want A&M to win to have that as a feasible option moving forward. Having said that Arkansas win we got is going to look better and better. Nick Smith's decided to play basketball, shockingly, as Arkansas starts winning. So they're going to be gearing up. Kentucky, that is a big game for Kentucky. You're right. I had underestimated where Mississippi State was. They're 40 in the net. They might not be. They're not in his. They've fallen out of the next four out, but they've got to be right behind that. So Mississippi State needs a win. A lot of good basketball tomorrow night.
Yeah, especially in conference, and important basketball because again, there's a couple of these teams could get hot and win 4 of their next 5, and suddenly they're looking up at us at talking about that 2-week bye in the SEC tournament. Makes a huge difference.
Here's the Saturday schedule. I don't want to point out all of them, but so Tennessee hosts Alabama, then travels to Rupp Saturday. So Tennessee's
having a brutal stretch, just like us.
With their losses, though, they've lost to Missouri, they lost to Vandy, they almost lost to us. This could get, and Tennessee's down. I think Julian Phillips might be out. I think the 3-name guy, Josiah Jordan James, who really had a great game against us, I think he might be out. So that's a big one. Arkansas,
and that's
Florida.
A chance for Kentucky to sweep that series.
Wow, yeah. And Kentucky, yeah. So this is, and I hope if you don't pay attention to basketball, if you're kind of like it's getting February, March, you're starting to pay attention, it's crazy. The SEC tournament will be starting 3 weeks from tomorrow. So like we are close. Auburn has 5 games left in their regular season. It's pretty
And
wild.
again, ladies and gentlemen, don't look now. We are one game ahead of Arkansas and Florida. We're only 2 games ahead of Georgia and Mississippi State. So there's
Yeah,
some crazy, crazy things that could happen in this logjam in the middle of the conference.
yeah.
We're floating towards the top, but we're not clear of it yet.
No,
Um, the next 2 games are going to go a long way in terms of our ability to separate ourselves. And you know, Kentucky has improved somewhat, but this team has a real chance to do one more very special thing at the end of this year that has not been done in Auburn basketball in a long time. And we know how Bruce loves making history. So if you have thought about tuning out of Auburn basketball for a little while, you missed a great game tonight, and you're going to miss some great games down the stretch.
man, I just realized this isn't likely, but you're right. From 2 to 11 in this league, I mean, good luck. Like there is a world where Auburn is only 2 games up on playing Wednesday night and having to win 5 games in the SEC tournament. Like they're only
Yeah.
2 games ahead. Now, mathematically, there a lot would have to happen for them to fall that far, but that's wild. It is going to be
Not out of the realm of possibility.
I think that explains a lot of the weirdness too, right? Like all these teams on any given night. I don't think the SEC is as nearly as strong this year, at the top especially, but not a lot of these teams are fun to play. We saw it with Georgia. Ole Miss and South Carolina and LSU have kind of established themselves as the bottom a little bit, but other than that, man, it's tough every night.
Yep.
All right. Any last thoughts on this? Johan is officially our third center now, I think, because Chris Moore continues to play power forward. We got to play Johan at center. He grabbed 3 rebounds in 5 minutes. Craziest stat I've ever heard in my life.
I'm telling you, he played 5 in high school in part because of just his sheer size. It's clear that is where he is most comfortable. I'm in favor of, just because I the way his quickness works really well, of experimenting with a little bit of sliding Dylan over to 4 if we get some more of these garbage minute times, just to see.
Tough position for Dylan though. I get nervous when he has to dribble or do stuff, but
we don't ask on offense. We don't ask a ton of dribbling from our 4.
Jalen has to do a decent amount.
We let Jalen do that in isolation, I think, or when we don't have a strong point guard on the floor. I think we've been asking a lot more out of our 3 and Flanagan, and then KD when we don't have Wendell on the floor.
That's fair. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and I think it was good to see Johan just look a little more comfortable, like you said.
Yeah, big for him. Big for him.
Yeah, and just good to see him still. I know he's the 11th guy right now. He's not going to play in most games because Broome and Cardwell. But like, let's imagine a world where, I hope this doesn't happen, but if Broome was out Saturday for some reason, Cardwell's going to play a ton, and Johan's going to have to play against Robbins. So get ready.
And again, like if we're in a situation where Janai can only give us 10 good minutes, and it turns out that he's in real trouble there, I don't know. I like Johan at the 5 a little bit more. I feel like he's more ready for that position. It doesn't ask as much from him in terms of his defensive assignments. Offensively, you can just tell he's not there yet. Wendell went to alley-oop to him tonight, and he wasn't ready for it. In the same way that we know Cardwell is as part of our Flying Tigers act. But just good to see him out there on the floor, looking more comfortable, developing in a way that we hadn't seen so far this year. Yeah, very good.
Then I want to close on this note. First of all, we shot 50% from 3, 48% overall. We hit 9 threes. If this team hits 9 or 10 threes in a game, y'all, we can beat anybody. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And I want you to close this out, and then I'll wrap it up. But like, how about that Trey Donaldson fast break dunk, bro?
Now listen, I don't want to harp on the end of this game too much, because Missouri was a defeated team. You could see they were ready to pack it up and go home. But yeah, we talked early in the year about feeling like we were missing some of the athleticism of previous Tiger teams, and we're starting to find it. We're starting to find it a little bit, and watch out. A few more thunderous Flanagan dunks. Oh. If we get a show-stopping dunk from Trey Donaldson when our backups are out there in that first or second rotation, that blow the roof off shot that Jackson's always begging for, that's going to be one of them.
Yeah, no, there were Flanagan quietly this year is putting up a lot of good dunks. Like I know it's not quietly, but it just feels like you think back, he's had a big dunk almost every other game. It seems like a thunderous, and he falls down on every dunk, and then Janai's falling down on 2 dunks. We gotta stay upright on our dunks.
The Sour Patch Kid shoes may not be doing it for us anymore. Maybe time to rotate those out.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks everybody for listening. War Eagle, big one at Vandy. Like I said, if you're coming to Nashville, I'm hoping there's no reason that place shouldn't be half Auburn fans with all the people that are going to be coming to this game. They're doing a big Friday night pregame thing. So if you're coming up, if you don't have tickets for that, I think they might still be selling them. I'm not sure. Bruce Pearl's going to be there. Lots of good stuff. Wear orange. Let's take over Vandy and give this team. This team still needs the boost. We need, to be fair, we have played pretty well on the road, actually. I mean, we've accounted for ourselves.
Way better than Jackson thought we would.
Yeah, Jackson. Listen, we went some dark places after that first Georgia game, okay? If you were listening to that pod. We're not that bad. We just need to hit some shots, and we did tonight. So, Ben, enjoyed talking about it, man. Thanks for all you're doing on the socials, graphic stuff. If you're enjoying that, that's almost all Ben. So, appreciate you. And
it's a happy graphics night. Happy graphics night.
And be ready, everybody. There's some stuff in the works that's going to be kind of exciting that has to do with, a great Auburn basketball player from the past and a connection he has. And, I'll let Jackson tease that a little more whenever he's back on the pod, but there's some stuff happening in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you're
some exciting crossovers. Stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah. All right, Ben, War Eagle.
War Eagle, Matt.